everybody, it's Dr. Joe, and today I'm going to talk about common trigger points and how to relieve them. So let's get started. Disclaimer alert, disclaimer alert. So basically a trigger point is when your muscle gets irritated, there's a really tender spot somewhere. Sometimes it feels like it's knotted up, and what's happening is the muscle is either getting overworked or it's getting worked in the wrong way, and it just kind of knots up. And the reason that trigger points can be so problematic is because then once there's that knot in there, then that muscle's not working how it's supposed to. So then overworking of other muscles, movements that aren't working how they're supposed to, and it can just cause a lot of problems and pain. So with a trigger point, usually the most common, easiest way to relieve it is really just find the trigger point. Most common trigger points for what I've seen is the neck, so the upper trap, levator scap up in here. Also, the common trigger points is the piriformis down in the bottom area, the IT band, and the quads. I'm going to talk more about the neck area to start off with because that's really where you see the most common trigger points. So you can just take your fingers and push down on that trigger point. And usually you can find it. It's really, really tender. It's pretty easy to find. And you're like, oh yeah, sometimes it makes you go like that when you hit it, but it's a really hurt so good kind of feeling. Now, if you're like me, getting a little bit older, work on trigger points a lot, starting to get a little bit of arthritis in your fingers, it's really good to use a tool to help with those trigger points instead of just using your fingers all the time and then wearing out your fingers. So the folks at Sidekick sent me their Flux vibration therapy ball. And this is a really, really cool tool to use because a lot of times you can use a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball or something like that. But when you use a ball that doesn't have like the vibration component, you really have to kind of move around, find the spot, roll on it a little bit. And vibration does a really good job of helping relax the muscles. The vibration movement kind of contracts and relaxes and contracts and relaxes the muscle to help just really get it to relax. So this is one of my favorite tools to use to help kind of get rid of those trigger points. And so with this, it has 4 different settings. So sometimes, you might be like, vibration's too much, but it starts off with level 1, which is a little bit, then it goes to 2, then 3 is kind of a variation where it goes up and down, and then 4 is the highest level. So it's really nice. You can kind of progress up to it. It also has these ridges here, which really lets you kind of dig into those trigger points. So I'm just going to go ahead and start showing you a little bit. And the reason I like this so much again is because you just kind of lie down on it. You don't have to wiggle around and move like maybe with a foam roller or something like that. And so when you can kind of see that it's vibrating like this, and this is just the lowest setting. And so what I would do is then just kind of put it, usually my levator scap is the biggest one. And so I can just find that spot, and then you go, ooh, that's the spot. And then just sit here and relax. And sometimes you might want to just slide a little bit, but you can just do little movements. You don't have to do big rolling movements like you might have to do with the foam rollers or things like that. Make sure you're comfortable. So if you need a pillow underneath, you can, and then just hold it there. You can do it, starting off, if you're doing this for the first time with the vibration, you just might want to do 30 seconds in each spot, maybe up to a minute. And then if you've done it for a long time, then you can definitely do a lot more than that. But the cool thing about this, again, is it's got some give to it. So if let's say you want it on your piriformis right there, it's not so hard that this is uncomfortable when I'm sitting on it. Sometimes a lacrosse ball is really, really hard, and it's slightly uncomfortable for some people. But this, so you can see, I'm just kind of doing a little wiggle move, but I'm hitting it. And again, that vibration is that extra piece to really help relax those trigger points. And I mean, it's very comfortable. It's not painful. You can even then go down into your IT band. But the most important part about trigger points is, let's say I've done about, 5 to 10 minutes really just working on it. There's my IT band. With the IT band, you can kind of roll around a little bit, going from your knee up to your hip into that TFL. But after you get that trigger point to release, and sometimes you really can feel it release underneath, you'll have it, and then it'll go, and then go right in. And once you get it to relax, you want to stretch those muscles afterwards. If you get a trigger point to relax and then you just stop and don't do anything else, then it's really going to be going right back to the same spot afterwards. You really need to lengthen out those muscle fibers afterwards. So this is a great way to do it before your workout to get everything loosened up, stretch, and then you can do it after your workout too, just to kind of relax everything back down. So another thing that I like to do is, especially in the neck for like the levator scap and the upper traps, if I have this on and I put it here, sometimes instead of moving your body, if you move your neck to get that muscle to shorten or lengthen, you can try it in different ways. That kind of helps get that trigger point out of there as well. So if I'm just sitting here, that's fine. But then if I want to try and get a little bit more into that trigger point, I'm going to turn into it just so I don't have as much tension on that muscle. And that a lot of times helps it relax as well. And if you're interested in purchasing the Flux Vibration Therapy Ball, make sure and click on the link up there. So after you get those trigger points worked out, it's feeling a lot better, then you want to go into a stretch. So the biggest ones for me, again, is that levator scap. And a lot of times if you're sitting at a desk for a long time, if you're driving for a long time and you kind of get that forward head posture, you really stress out those neck muscles. So a great levator scapular stretch is, if it's on this side, I'm going to take this hand and just kind of put it up here. And what that does is that holds that shoulder blade or that scapula down where it attaches. So it keeps it kind of in one spot to get a good stretch. And then I'm going to take my head and turn over like I'm looking towards my opposite knee. So it's not straight down, it's not out to the side, but I'm putting my hand behind my head and going kind of at an angle. So elbow high up as you comfortably can, and then just pulling down towards that opposite knee. And I should feel that stretch right through there. And if I've already gotten that trigger point worked out, most of the time you're going to feel that you can stretch it further, and it's going to feel more comfortable when you're stretching it. So with the stretches, 30 seconds, 3 times each side. With stretching, you don't really need to go longer than that, but you really need to get that 20 to 30 second stretch to really lengthen out that muscle. So then for the piriformis afterwards, if you get that piriformis worked out, and a lot of times that makes a big difference because that sciatic nerve runs under that piriformis. So if it's tight, if it has some trigger points in it, once you get it released, it's going to feel a lot better. And then you can stretch it out afterwards. You can do this sitting in a chair. Sometimes people have a hard time getting up off the floor, but just take the side that you want to stretch and cross it over. So again, see, I could do this sitting in a chair and just cross my leg over. You want to keep your back fairly straight. And you can do one of two things. You can slide the other foot up to get the stretch, and I'm feeling that piriformis stretch right through there. Or you can just get it to where it's a little tight and then just kind of push your whole body up forward. But try not to bend your back, because then you're not really getting that stretch. You want your hips to come forward to get that stretch, and I feel a really good stretch right through there. So again, you can get those trigger points anywhere. Lots of times trigger points are all throughout the body. Again, the IT band's a big one, the piriformis up in the neck area, but there's some in other places in your quad, your calves, things like that. So getting that trigger point release is really important because then you're going to be able to get that extra stretch in there, and then stretching afterwards to make sure that trigger point comes back is really the best thing to do. So if you're interested in purchasing the Flux, make sure and click on the link up there. And don't forget to subscribe by clicking down there. And remember, be safe, have fun, and I hope you feel better soon.